In today's video, I'm going to show you how to transform your home into a cozy winter wonderland with some of my best DIY Christmas decor ideas. Hi there, welcome to Christmas at the Schwowin's Nest. My name is Sandra and I'm so glad you're here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more holiday inspiration. Now let's get crafting. My first project for you today is using fabric, and I'm using the Cricut Easy Press to iron this fabric and make it nice and smooth, but you can definitely just use a regular household iron for this project. I'm also going to be using this HeatnBond light because I want to put a glue on the back of my fabric so I can cut it out into different shapes and then iron it onto a different piece of material. And this is really fun stuff to use. What you're going to do is take it and make sure that the glue side is down onto the back of your fabric like I'm showing you here, and then you're simply going to iron it on. Once you lift up a little corner and the fabric looks shiny, then you know your glue has been transferred to the fabric and you're ready to go. To create my patterns, I used my Cricut and some cardstock and I cut out some Christmas trees. And what I'm going to do is use the actual stencil portion of it instead of the trees themselves. So I'm going to just lay it down onto a piece of the fabric, and I'm doing this from the back because I don't want any pencil marks on the front of my fabric. And I'm just going to trace it out and then simply cut it with scissors. There's nothing fancy about this project. You can definitely cut out all sorts of different types of Christmas trees that you can find online, print them off on a piece of paper, and you're good to go. I used a rotary cutter just to separate all of my trees, and then I'm going to use a small pair of scissors to get into all of the little corners and make sure that I have a nice sharp line. I'm using this piece of scrap wood as the backing for my sign, but you could also do this on fabric or you could make some pillows. There's all sorts of different things you can do with this fusible web and the fabric. I peeled off the backing paper of the glue, and now I'm using a piece of parchment paper just to protect my fabric and the wood sign as well. I don't want to burn anything, and I'm going to be ironing it and just holding it in place until the glue sets up and is attached to the board. I'm going to continue this process until I have my total treescape completed on my board. It's looking amazing. It's not going to peel up. I really love this technique and I haven't done it in a while, so I think I'm going to be trying this again shortly. Here's a look at what my trees look like now. I went back to my Cricut. I cut out Merry Christmas, but you could definitely just trace this with printer paper if you've got it printed off, or you can do it freehand with a black marker. I think this turned out amazing. I love the combination of the drop cloth with the Nordic stripe kind of fabric that I found. Let me know what you think of this. This project was so much fun to create. I'm going to grab this box. It did have a lid for it. I'm going to take that latch off because I don't need it. However, you could leave it on if you wanted for a little bit of extra vintage look. I'm just going to sand down a bit of the paint because I did paint this before. And now I'm going to add this. I'm not even sure what color this is. This was an oops at the hardware store that I grabbed, but I thought it looked sort of like weathered wood, maybe that kind of a color. So I'm going to give this a good coat all the way around, and then I'm going to be adding some black to distress it. I cut down this box and I'm going to use that to fill up the wood box. Then I don't have to use floral foam or newspaper or anything like that. And I'll have a nice solid base for my project. To get rid of that color, I'm just using some printer paper that was folded up and I'll hot glue that into place too. I'm going to easily create two little houses by using a square piece of wood and a triangle for the roof. Hot glue does the trick, adding these together and making some sweet little wooden houses. To distress the box, I started with some burnt umber and a really rough brush, very lightly dry brushing it over it. And then I added some black too, and that just gives a little bit more dimension. If you don't like the distressing, you could definitely leave the box the way it is, or you could even just do some sanding around the edges and the corners, and that would make it look amazing as well. I laid out all of my bottle brush trees to see how I would want them placed, and now I decided to add a tumbling tower block to the bottom of one of the little houses just to make it a little bit bigger and add some interest. Then all I need to do is use some hot glue and glue all of my trees down, including the houses, and this creates a beautiful winter wonderland look. My Dollarama store, which is a local dollar store here in Canada, had these little birch branches. I think I have seen them at Dollar Tree as well. They might be just a little bit different. But I decided to add those in because I thought that would just make it look a little bit more realistic. And they have a bit of sparkle on them too, so it just kind of looks like snow. The next thing I'm going to do after adding all the rest of these little baby trees is use some Epsom salts and make everything look like it's sitting on a bed of snow. I didn't put down any glue, but you could definitely just put some hot glue down and pour the Epsom salts right on top. They look so festive and crystally, and it looks absolutely amazing. Let me know what you think of this little village box and if you'll create one this year too. We've all seen those little skinny Charlie Brown Christmas trees that the Dollar Tree has, and I've grabbed three of them. And I've also grabbed this wood look pot that I got at my Dollarama store. I'm going to create a really fluffy and much taller tree using these three trees from the Dollar Tree. So the first thing to do, literally just open it up, fluff it out as best you can. They're so spindly, but we're going to make that look so much better in just a second. I added the second tree to the first one just using some cable ties or zip ties, whatever you want to call them, and that created a much fuller effect for me. The third tree is going to be at the top, which is going to make this tree about 1.5 times the size of the normal size of these little trees. Using a couple of zip ties, I'm going to simply add the third tree to the top of the first two trees. And that's going to make a much taller tree, although it is going to look a little funky until we add some additions to it. Now I'm doing my best to fluff out the tree as best you can, and here's where I said it looks a little funky. It goes really narrow and then it gets wide again, but there's a really quick fix that we can make this tree look amazing. I used a chunk of floral foam, just gluing it down to the bottom of the pot, and that's going to give me the ability to just stab these two trees right into the bottom. Stays nice and sturdy. We're going to use those wired garland ties that you can get from the Dollar Tree. What I like to do is take them and just run my finger across them so it kind of just opens up the fronds. I'm going to trim these into 3 sections, and that's going to give me the ability to add some fullness to the Christmas tree's branches. What I'm going to do is, because these are wired, they're so easy to bend. I'm going to use it sort of like a twist tie. I'm going to go halfway down the stem and then just crisscross the little branches. So I have 3 branches instead of 1. It kind of makes it look more natural and more like a Christmas tree. So I'm going to continue to do that for every single branch. Where I had the small branches and then the real long branches, I'm just going to give this a haircut and make it look like it's blending in just nicely. Then I'll continue to use some of the smaller pieces that I'm cutting off and some more of those garland ties to make this look much fuller. Here I'm taking all of the little bits and pieces that I had cut off that were extra, and I'm gluing them into the center of the tree. That's going to give it a really thick and full look too. Here's how it looks so far, and it's an amazing difference compared to those little spindly trees. What I'm going to do now is just add some of these boxwood branches that have a little bit of a dusting on them. I'm going to add some little white berries and just decorate this tree and make it look even fancier than it is. Some little pine cones will go in there as well. And then this one's going to be done. I really love how this one turned out, and I still have it sitting in my house to this day. As far as I'm concerned, you can never have too many signs floating around your house for the Christmas season. I love all things rustic and farmhouse, so I created this frame just with some cut off pieces that I had. I'm going to leave the frame exactly the way it is, and I'm just going to be painting the backing. This is just a piece of sign that you can get at the Dollar Tree. You know, that wooden stuff that they make all of their signs? I ended up just stapling that to the back of the frame, and it turned out great. Now that I've got my couple of coats of white chalk paint on the inside, I'm mixing up a little bit of green paint and a little bit of black. I'm going to use a technique that I used in a previous project, actually in a couple previous projects, and I'm going to be dry brushing these Christmas trees on this sign. The stencil that I have is something that I did cut out with my Cricut. You can find all sorts of different Christmas tree stencils at the dollar stores, plus Walmart, and even on Amazon. So make sure you go take a look if you're looking for some stencils. You can get them for really cheap. I'm dry brushing this. I used a little bit of paint. I offloaded the majority of it, but now you can see that that dark green it's just the perfect color that I wanted. And dry brushing the trees gives them so much texture and makes them look realistic. With a small brush, I'm adding more of the paint just to give them a little bit more dimension. Using some black, I'm just going to accent the trunks a little bit too. Dollar Tree has come out with some of these thicker stencil letters, which I love. Some of the other ones were really thin, but this is a really nice stiff plastic. So I'm going to be just trimming the letters into rows. That's just going to give me a little bit more control over the stencils themselves. When I do stenciling of letters and a lot of other things too, I like to use the Dollar Tree little makeup sponges. These ones that I have are a little bit different. I don't think they were the real thick ones, so I had to be really careful how much paint I applied. I'm going to put on here Farm Fresh trees, and then I'm going to just hand write pine, spruce, and fir down at the bottom underneath the trees. One of my favorite things to do with stenciled letters is to create a little bit of a shadow line. And that just makes the signs look a little bit more high end. So for this one, I'm just going across the top a little wee bit and then going straight down on the left side to add a little bit more interest to the sign and just to kind of camouflage that there's a lot of white space on either side of the trees, I'm going to create a grain sack stripe. I'm just going to use a marker and my ruler, and then I'll just color in the thick stripe in the center. Finally, just for some final embellishments, I'm going to take these two pieces of pine, glue them down, and add a few pine cones. This sign has been hanging in my home for probably the last 4 or 5 years, and I've actually left it out all year round because it doesn't mention anything about Christmas trees, just farm fresh pine, spruce, and fir. Okay, so we've all got these signs from the Dollar Tree. They have that little hard cardboard, and this one was a palette one. I thought it was perfect for the project I wanted to do. I tried peeling off some of the paper, but then I realized what I wanted to do with it. I really didn't need to peel off the paper. I'm going to be adding some scrapbook paper to all of these pieces, so I could have just flipped it around and used the backside. These boards are really easy to cut just with a utility knife. So I've created some angles and I'm going to continue making them all the way up to the top of the tree, but I'm going to make them a little bit smaller each time I do it. I had a Christmas paper pack from Michaels and I just pulled out some of the designs that I wanted to use. I thought this with the green and the snow falling would be really pretty. So I'm going to be using just a glue stick. You can use hot glue if you wanted, but a glue stick worked fine for this. And then I'll just cut out all of the excess. These signs that you can get from your dollar stores are really handy when you want to have something that is standing up and can stand on its own because they're nice and thick. I needed a little bit of extra space on the top, so I'm just adding this little cube, and that will help me start to glue everything together. Hot glue does the trick for this as well, so I'm just going to start putting my tree together. I decided to leave a space in between my pieces, but you don't have to. I just really enjoyed the palette look and also the brown from the base underneath. You could definitely leave the tree as is, but I decided just to add a little bit of greenery just to give it some dimension and a little bit more interest. I really love the patterns that I used, and I think this tree turned out really pretty. I hope you got inspired to create some of your own cozy and warm Christmas decor pieces, adding a personal touch to your home for the Christmas season this year. Thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.